Welcome to Monday Nights and the Simpademic. Jason here. I thought I would do a part two of an interesting subject here because of somebody who's kind of come around back into my life a little bit here and it reminded me of this story. And this is basically the part two of how to handle somebody that you might have a crush or an interest on. And this is going to be the story from me back in southeastern Texas when I was 14 years old. And I think I've told this here before, but I'm going to tell it again, short version. But I had said crush on somebody else in my history class as a freshman in high school at age 13 and 14. I'm a grade skipper, so I was actually a year ahead of everybody else in my particular class. So I'm at high school in ninth grade, and I fancied somebody in my class quite a bit. Now, I also knew that she had a boyfriend of her own, so how I decided to do that is I held my cards to the vest for the entire year. I never told anybody a thing. And the reason for that is even though I really cared for this girl quite a bit, I was not in a position where that was my priority. And emotions, can sometimes be uncontrollable, but if you can control them, you will benefit your life. That was no different here because I focused on my academics, I focused on my studies. I didn't have the greatest middle school grades out there, but I wanted to kind of get into high school and get on a better plane, is the better way to put it. I also wanted to focus. My high school in Texas was a little different from most, in that a lot of the people who you would think would be popular weren't necessarily popular, and a lot of people that you would think were not popular were. The most popular girl in our high school was a drum major. Now, this is not the person who I had the interest in because I was a freshman and she was a junior, so that wasn't going to happen. But I wanted somebody else in my particular class. But like I said, she already had a boyfriend, so I decided to keep everything tied to the vest. It was very difficult to do. It wasn't very easy, but I think it benefited me in the long run and gave me the ability to control my emotions down the road later in life. And because getting a girlfriend was not my priority, I was in an abusive household. Just getting through each day without having my stepmother do something abusive was basically my daily goal for a while. But here's where this story kind of flips itself. I became very good friends, very close friends with somebody else who was a sophomore, and she was going through the same thing I was with abusive, in my case, an abusive stepmother. Her case, two, fairly abusive parents, and they always tried to keep her, away from extracurricular activities or whatnot. But what she did is it's awe-inspiring just to this day. She tried out for the dance team. Not the cheerleaders, but the dance team. And in an effort to be able to get away from her parents' vice-like grip, she tried out for the dance squad and made it. And I was inspired enough about that to try to... I actually started practicing my place kicking just to see if I could make the football team as a field goal kicker, because I wanted to have something where my stepmother could not restrict me. And so I practiced. I never got good enough to do that. But it was an inspiration, and we both had gone through a very difficult time together. Very attractive blonde gal, but she's 2 years older than I am. Was 2 years old, still obviously is. 2 years older than I am. And I find out several years later, after high school, when I was living in Colorado, I ran into her and she's like, you know what? I liked you a lot. In fact, I loved you dearly. And I was just like, oh my God, what did I do? I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell what was going on. She wasn't blatantly obvious about it, but one of the kids on the block, a younger kid, picked up on it and he was like, "What are you doing, Jason? What the heck? What the bleep are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, we are in the same chemistry class together." And he's like, I think there's more chemistry going on than just that science class." And it turns out being, I find out when I was, around 20 years old, I believe it was, several years after high school. And I run into her and she's like, "I loved you dearly." And I can't blame myself for this because I was only 14 years old at the time. At that age, you're not expected to know these things. But at the same time, I kept my focus, and it was a very successful freshman year for me. But at the same time, I had a dear friend who thought the world of me, and I'm just thinking to myself, what would have made me think that I would have even had any sort of a chance with this girl? And, she was 2 years older than myself. She was a sophomore. I was a freshman. She's on the dance team, They didn't produce the most popular girl in the school, but I mean, they're up on the list. And I just, I was like, I couldn't even see the signs because I don't think I wanted to, but at the same time, I was focused on somebody else and I was focused on myself at the same time. And I'm immensely proud of my accomplishments in that freshman year and later on down the road as I went through school. But I cannot, and this lady reemerged in my life recently, reached out to me through social media. When I go back to Houston next year, I think we're probably going to meet. There is a faith difference right now, so there's no chance of a reunion of any kind in that regard. But I'm interested in getting to know a little bit better. This is somebody who chased a lot of career. She's never been married, doesn't have any children, is now 54 years old, I'm 52. And chased a career, chased her doctorate degree in computer science, got it, had a high-flying career, but I see this with a lot of women who spend a lot of their prime years, younger years. She wanted somebody who was on a stronger life and financial plane than herself, but because she was so pretty high up the totem pole, that wasn't going to, the odds of that happening for somebody with a over $200,000 a year income, the odds of that happening are very slim. There's just not a lot of men that fall in that particular demographic. It just doesn't exist for very much. I see these women on social media, TikTok or whatever, saying that they need a man who makes $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year, $500,000 a year, and I'm just like, you do realize how rare those men are. You're basically asking for a unicorn. And so my old friend, I'm going to see her probably in August. I'll be sure to share it with you guys once I do. But at the same time, I still won that in that year because I focused on myself. I focused on my grades. I focused on getting to know the people in my class. And it was really, it was still a very enjoyable year. And this is the way to, even though I had a crush on somebody else entirely, it kept me from losing control of myself. It kept me from being obsessed with that. And you never want to really be obsessed with a woman. So this is how I would recommend you best address a crush like that, but I obviously can't guarantee that you're going to wind up with a situation like mine, but who knows? So anyway, this is a little bit of my life story once again on In the Simpademic. It's Jason. I'm going to go back to watching my football game now because my Broncos just got scored on. And I decided to film this episode because I didn't want to jinx them, because I'm one of those people who believes that if I'm watching my football team, I can jinx them for some reason. Don't ask why. It's just superstition. But anyway, it's Jason and the Simpademic. I will see you all tomorrow night, and I'm sure I'll pull another subject out of my rear somehow. I will talk to you later.